We started out cutting trees and putting them in a van. Cutting up the brush in a van for 3 seconds is about all you can handle with the carbon monoxide in the van. Working your way up to a truck, but then you get a trailer and then a dump truck. My first dump truck I thought I was hog heaven. It was an old beat up nasty dump truck, but it was a dump truck. We'd load that up and we didn't have to hand unload it anymore. We thought we were something else. But anyway, from the dump truck, we worked our way up to a chipper. Now we've got, several chippers and a loader truck. The loader truck was a big thing because we loaded wood by hand for years in the back of trailers and the back of trucks. When we got the loader truck, that was another big step. Now we have 2 bucket trucks, 3 chippers, 3 chipper trucks, 2 stump grinders, 1 loader truck on the way, 1 lift, and another lift on the way. We go in and we pretty well knock out a job start to finish, and we're done and we're on to the next one.
So I bought my first house in 2010, and the first thing I wanted to do was remove a couple trees that scared me, and I had never dealt with tree people at all. So I Googled tree people in Jacksonville, and Above and Beyond Tree Service was one of the ones that popped up, and he came out and he did an estimate.
I estimated her trees. She decided to go with me and did her trees, and then a couple months after that I asked her out.
His name popped up on my caller ID, and I thought that was really weird. He must be trying to sell me something. And it was him calling to ask me on a date. The first signs that something was wrong was he started forgetting stuff, and he never had the greatest memory in the world, but it got a whole lot worse all of a sudden. That was probably the very first sign I noticed. His personality changed some. He started needing to sleep a whole lot more than usual. He started having headaches, but they started to come more frequently. Those are probably the first symptoms that I noticed, and those got gradually worse. He woke up in the middle of the night on January 25th, and he didn't know who I was. So I took him to the ER. The very first thing they did was an MRI, and that's when we found out that it was a brain tumor. He had the first surgery on February 5th, and most of that was in the ICU, and he had a lot of complications from the surgery. We found out immediately after the surgery that the tumor crushed his pituitary gland. I don't think that he even remembers that period at all, but it was really bad. He was in a whole lot of pain, and he was very, very, very confused. We were at home for 5 days, and instead of getting progressively better, he got progressively worse, and I had to take him back to the ER on February 17th. And then the next morning we had to have an emergency surgery because we found out the surgical site leaked to his brain. So we were back in the hospital for another, I think 2 or 3 weeks. That was a more serious issue than actually the brain tumor. He was still in like this weird state of half awake, half asleep, and he was in that state for like 4 days. And they had trouble waking him up. And when they did wake him up, they didn't know how much functioning he had because he had a lot of air in his brain. We went back for our first MRI check, and they found the tumor was still there. And then we had to go back a month after that. That was in July. We went back, and they discovered it was growing. It was growing faster than it had even before. Then they told us our options were another surgery, radiation, or a clinical trial. So we started on the clinical trial in August. We are still on it right now. So we ended up having like 3 different hospital stays. So we were in the hospital roughly about a month total.
Whenever I was in the hospital, during the time I was in there, I didn't know what was going on. I was a little bit crazy and whatnot, but Christian had to, when I got out and started to get my mind right again, I was worried about how the business was going, where it was at.
We were at home for a month, and he did rehab at home, and then he immediately started making efforts to go back to work.
And starting to think again, I got to get back out there. I got to see what's going on rather than hear it. I felt like I had to be out there and doing it, or else it wasn't going to happen. It was real hard to get started again because I was so weak, but just kept pushing, and right now I feel like I'm probably about 80% back to where I was before I got sick.
Right now, he's doing pretty phenomenally well compared to where he was. It's kind of a miracle that he's actually doing this well. They told me immediately after the first surgery that he would probably never climb a tree again. And they told me it would probably be a full year before he could go back to work even. And he was starting to work 2 months after the surgery.
Yeah, it was very difficult whenever I got out of the hospital to recover and regain my strength again. Recently, I'm starting from the ground, working my way back up, and I'm getting there, getting my strength back.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been a type A person. I like for stuff to look right, be right. I like for my customers to say, wow, they did a good job. They went above and beyond to get the job done.
He takes his role as the leader so seriously. Everything has to be perfect, everything has to be right, everything has to go smoothly.
I'm very proud to be a climber. I really like being out there and having my hands on and doing the work and making sure it's done right and a good job's done. That way, these customers will call me back, and that's the reason why I like doing it.
Kevin is the guy that's going to come out and climb their trees. They ask that all the time if Kevin's coming out. They all know that he's the owner. He has customers that have literally, he's done their trees for 25 years, almost the entire time he's done tree work.
I love his services. He's always done everything exact. He cleans up after everything. It's very neat and well cleared off. And I have recommended his tree services to other people. He's very experienced.
He's a real leader. He doesn't mind getting out there and working along with the guys, which is something very unusual in this industry. He has leadership qualities that everybody looks for, and that is hands-on, getting out and actually showing us. He just has a good style about him. He never really gets on to us. He works with us. We're more of a brotherhood.
There's no one out there stronger than him. And I'm not even talking about the physical sense, but mentally, he's all there. The stuff he goes through, stuff he's been through, and to still be out here with us in the tree, cutting trees, strength all the way through.
We hope that we're at the tail end of doing chemotherapy treatment, and that with all that positive energy from getting better, we're hoping that that will also mean that the business can get better. We really could have lost everything, and I feel like for a time we kind of were hanging on by our fingernails. But now we're trying to prepare the business and build it up so that that never ever happens again.